jumping in with this in our latest edition of In a Matter of Minutes, and you know that we're always trying to provide you a proven and actionable process that you can apply to your practice right now. And in these two editions, nothing different. We're going to do that. I want to call this the barriers to entry, and we're going to divide it into two short, meaningful, easy to watch, easy to listen to segments. You know, barriers to entry was something that I was really fascinated by because we came about it sort of organically. And while every advisor and every relationship with a client has changes or hurdles or a few bumps in the road that you have to navigate throughout the life of that relationship, the barriers to entry that we came across became evident as we were doing coaching and consulting and had opportunity to interact with clients after appointments or at an ideal client reception or at a workshop or some other get-together where as consultants we could ask questions and dive into a conversation that was a little bit different than the advisor, and certain things were revealed. So to set the table a little bit, to let you know the background of this and some key things, they always did the barriers to entry come up in client conversations. And oftentimes we found that they were sort of subconscious or subliminal in the mind of the client. From there, I want to say this, that these conversations are not isolated to just financial advisors. And we found over the years that a lot of times financial advisors will think, you know, how my conversations go or my interactions with clients go is different than really any other interaction that they would have in life. And we have found just the opposite. And clients think that too, that the advisor sometimes approaches things and conversations a little bit differently. But the clients would tell us that's really not true. However I interact with other businesses, my family, colleagues, friends, and so forth, those mental and emotional approaches would apply here. So keep that in mind. We're going to touch on that in just a minute. Also, once we identified these, then the goal was to help advisors overcome these barriers to entry and provide solutions. And in doing so, we always want to make sure that professional contrast is evident. And you know that if you've worked with the protocol division at USA or have gone out to the Advisor Advancement Academy and seen some of the courses out there, that professional contrast is front and center. And so we were able to address some of these things and go back to our advisors and say, here are really simple fixes that you might want to apply to some of the conversations and relationships you have with your clients. The other thing too that I just mentioned is if you haven't been to the Advisor Advancement Academy, we're going to want you to go out there. There are a myriad of tools and resources, videos, scripting that apply to all the departments, all the divisions, all of our partner subsidiaries at USA Financial, and you'll find those beneficial. And I'm going to point back to a couple of those as we go through the barriers to entry. So the first one, and there was nothing scientific to what I called these, it just was sort of how the conversation evolved. The first one I call what's expected of me. And this really came up in conversations with prospects mainly. That we'd sit in an appointment, and then after the appointment we'd have an opportunity to have a conversation. And what we found was that many times prospects, especially in a first appointment, really had no idea what was said to them. It sounds crazy, but as we sort of dove in a little deeper, it started to make sense. A prospect walks into the conversation, walks into the meeting not having any idea what's going to happen, and so what they have going on is their own conversation in their head. Do I have to buy something? Was I supposed to bring something? What are they going to ask for next? What's expected of me? And think about how this might happen in your daily life on a personal level, with a spouse, with one of your kids, with a friend, with a business colleague. Listen, I know that it happens probably once a day for my team. We're all very busy. And I'll be just getting off a call, and a teammate of mine will walk in and say, here's something I need to discuss with you. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And all the while, I'm sort of reviewing in my head what was happening on the last phone call. And I'm nodding and I'm paying attention, and I have honestly no idea at the end of the conversation what was said. So I try to connect the dots as best I can, or in those moments where I have to, I'll ask my colleague, my teammate to repeat the conversation. Does this ever happen to you? With a spouse, with one of your kids? Yeah. And you get down the conversation and your spouse is done with it, and you're like, they say, at what time are we going to go then? And that's how you look at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a question, there's a comment there. Barrier to entry number one, what's expected of me? Simple fix. We found that just by using an agenda in the appointment, and we talked to our advisors many times about sending the agenda 48 hours in advance of the meeting. And the agenda doesn't have to be 12 or 15 bullets. It's not complicated. It's very simple. It's 4 or 5 bullets for a first meeting especially. It's a fit meeting. And what's important to you? We want to get to know you, share our process with you, our value-added services. It's very simple. And you send it ahead of time. What you've done is you've emotionally and philosophically empowered the client to be a part of the meeting, and you've also held yourself to an accountability standard. The bullets are there. The client knows what to expect. They sit down in a much more comfortable, participatory type of mood. It makes all the difference. Now, if you can't email it or get it to them ahead of the meeting, then you certainly can share it before the meeting. And again, if you get out to the Advisor Advancement Academy, we have a whole course on how to use the agendas. It's not rocket science, but it certainly makes a difference. It's barrier to entry, number 1. Number 2, we called this professional arrogance, but I think that was a bit of a, not the right word, not the right descriptor. And it would be something like this. Your client, your best clients have had a relationship with you that's 10, 12, 15, 20, 25 years. And they start to think things like, well, my advisor knows everything. Well, she thinks she knows everything, and she should know everything. And they're thinking it's sort of positive. She should know everything. She's been doing this for a really long time, and she's known us for a really long time. And while that's not necessarily a negative, it is a barrier to participation at some points. And what we found was the solve to this was a very simple client advisory board, 1-to-1. And those of you that have been through our consulting process, you know the 3 questions. And you know how meaningful it is. It's as simple as getting your best clients on the phone, maybe once a year, and saying, listen, we want to make our clients consistently the voice that we listen to. And so let's just review this. 3 quick questions. Number 1, what is the one thing you value most about your relationship with us? Number 2, if you could add one thing to the client experience that you have with our firm, what would that be? And then number 3, if you don't mind my asking, when you talk about us to friends or family members or business colleagues, people that are important to you, what do you say? Simple. We have found, especially with long tenured relationships, the effect on the client is dramatic. Number 1, I feel like now that the relationship isn't being taken for granted. There's no loyalty fatigue there. Every year we're checking in, and as things change, my thoughts change, and thanks for asking. The other thing that was revealed is clients would say, wow, my advisor, she's been doing this for 27 years, and obviously she's trying to grow the practice. She's trying to be better. She asked us what we think in a very meaningful way. So again, the whole idea of loyalty fatigue, professional arrogance, if you will, taking the relationship a little bit for granted both ways, overcome by a very simple one-on-one conversation. The third one for this first segment of this section of Matter of Minutes is the brain box. Now this is really interesting, and this one is pervasive. And for those of you that came into the business through one line, perhaps you started in risk management, insurance, annuities, whatever it might be, and as the practice grew, you added wealth management, and you communicated that to your clients. Maybe then you added a strategic partner around taxes or estate issues, whatever it might be. All of you know that your clients will continue to refer to you and introduce you as my insurance person. Same thing the other way if it was wealth management and then you added the other services. It is a natural human nature component that exists way outside of financial services. It really is foundational to all relationships. However the relationship is started is going to dictate what I think of it and how I describe it from here on out. This is a very simple fix, and we have a whole course in the Advisor Advancement Academy called Shoot Your Trailer. When you think of Shoot Your Trailer, you think of a movie. Give me the snapshot, the 3 minutes. In Shoot Your Trailer, we're going to talk about how you communicate all the different things that you do, but you have them point to a singular word, process, or method, or formula, whatever it might be. The human nature component here is that if you are listing out things to me, and over a number of years you've added services, you think I'm going to remember that. Well, I'm busy, and if you only mention it one time, I kind of forget, and a lot of times the relationships I have are a matter of timing and convenience. I needed some extra insurance, but an insurance guy popped up, whatever it might be. It's difficult when it's individual pieces, but we found without fail, that when you have a process, it communicates a couple things to clients. process would indicate that there are other pieces there, that you're not winging it, that it's been thought out, that it's been practiced, it's tried and true. And again, that a method or a formula or a process has multiple pieces. And that is what sticks in the mind of the client. So if ever there's a conversation they're having in their head about, I wonder if my advisor sells insurance, I don't remember if she said that or not, we better call her before we make a decision. So those first three, what's expected of me, professional arrogance, and the brain box. That's part one of barriers to entry. If we don't catch you in part two, make sure to stay grateful and make the minutes matter.